The Charlotte Podcast Festival is presented by Blumenthal Performing Arts, the Queen City Podcast Network, Eclecs Creative Agency, and WFAE, Charlotte's NPR news source, the home of acclaimed podcast Charlotte Talks, She Says, The List, Amplifier, Southbound, and FAQ City. Learn more about WFAE and our latest podcast, Work It, at WFAE.org.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing tonight? We're so happy to have you with us today for the Charlotte Podcast Festival. My name is Perrine DeShield. I am the owner and director of Eclecs Creative Agency, which is a partner for the Charlotte Podcast Festival. I'm also the creator of two podcasts, one, First Gens, and two, The Quarantine Couch. So I'm super excited to have you here today. All right, so I'm going to be your moderator tonight. And basically, we're just happy to keep the momentum going, okay? We are on week 2 of the Charlotte Podcast Festival, and we couldn't be more excited, right? So we are presenting the Charlotte Podcast Festival to you by WFAE, Charlotte's #1 NPR news source, as well as Queen City Podcast Network, Blumenthal Performing Arts, and again, my agency, Eclecs, all right? So without further ado, we're going to be talking about Audacity. We have the audacity to talk about Audacity tonight. You were waiting for that joke. Yeah,
that was a great joke. That's a great joke, Perrine.
It was a great joke. Thank you. And we're going to get to that gentleman's voice who you just heard, Mr. Konata Edwards. He is going to be leading our session. So let me tell you a little bit about Konata, right? So Konata Edwards is a man whose first love of radio turned into a wonderful romance with podcasts in the audio space. He's worked in some form of media since 2015, and he has produced hundreds of podcasts for so many different companies. All right, so Konata currently works for WFAE on All Things Considered, one of my personal faves, and he is also very uncomfortable with writing bios. So, we hope that what I just said was great and you just loved it. Yes. So we're super duper excited. Again, like we said, we're going to have a great conversation tonight about Audacity. Konata is going to actually give like a quick demo with Audacity, and we're going to kind of let you know about how Audacity, the free and my preferred audio editing platform, will equip you with the basics that you need to edit your podcast and beyond. All right. So we look forward to answering audience questions throughout this evening. While we do ask that your audio remains muted, so make sure that you keep yourself, muted throughout this session. You can leave questions in the Zoom chat, all right? We're gonna actually get to all of your questions towards the end of the hour, so kind of hold off. If you have something just burning inside, I don't wanna, withhold that, but we are gonna get to Q&As at the end of tonight's session, okay? This is a reminder to you also as a participant and someone who registered for this amazing session, you are going to receive this session. It's recorded, and so it will be emailed to you this month. So make sure you check your spam and your junk folders, all of that good stuff, because you don't want to lose this gem. You don't want to be like, oh, you know what? What did Konata say about Audacity? And you'll have those answers in your inbox. Just make sure you look out for it. All right, so we encourage you to check out the full list of all of the sessions that are taking place for the Charlotte Podcast Festival, right? So we're going until October 30th. So you still have time to register for even more sessions if you have not done so yet. So make sure you go to charlottepodcastfestival.com to learn more and get all the information, okay? So tonight we're gonna be using a hashtag because hashtags are just, the millennial way of life. So hashtag CLT Podcast Fest is our designated hashtag. So again, if you're just moved by something just so amazing, or you just want to share that you're here tonight, make sure that you connect with us, you engage with us on social media, and you use that hashtag CLT Podcast Fest, all right? So you can also, if you're thinking about other ways to support this amazing festival, that's free 99, you can purchase a t-shirt like me, all right? So this lovely t-shirt, our Charlotte Podcast Festival t-shirt, was created by Met Fly Fresh, one of our amazing local Charlotte designers. So you can also find that information out on our website. Again, charlottepodcastfestival.com. That was a mouthful. I'm a podcaster and I love to talk, but that was a lot of talking for me. So I'm going to pass it on to our presenter of the evening. Again, Mr. Konata Edwards. Take it away, sir. Take it away.
You know, I keep trying to look behind me to make sure that someone's like, again, there's someone like really famous behind me, because Perrine's introduction was a little bit like, again, 10 out of 10, will recommend again. So hello, welcome to, again, Audacity 101. And we're going to try and keep this simple because Audacity is probably, again, it's Perrine's favorite software. It's my second favorite of the audio softwares, digital audio workspaces, as they say. It is, so let's get into this. I'm gonna start sharing the screen so that we can get this going, because that is the most important thing, is for us to learn. So when you see it, when you first see this, you're going to notice that there are a load of different options. This is going to look somewhat intimidating because, again, there may be nothing more intimidating than a blank working space. There are a couple of things that I would point out that are very, very important to make sure that you have available to you. And again, first things first, make sure that, again, if you're recording with a mic, that you have essentially, again, that is actually connected in, because if you connect, again, if you're connecting it and you don't hear anything, or again, as you see, that's that monitor right there. And it's a very important piece because, again, if that's not connected, you're basically not sure if you're going to record, or you're not sure how you're going to start sounding. So if you want to, again, just to start, just make sure everything's connected. My microphone's connected, and how you check is you basically see this drop down folder. You're going to check. Mine's is the Yeti microphone, stereo microphone. And we're going to go see. Now, again, to make sure that it's connected, you're going to check that monitor right there, because most importantly, that monitor is going to be the reason that it actually, the monitor is actually going to be the reason that you can record stuff, and it's going to end up being one of those things that you're going to need much, much later. All right, and let's see. So we're going to do a sample track, new track per se. And we're going to go new track. And I'm going to hit record. Now it's just recording what I'm going to say. And I'm just going to be free to record and say whatever I want. And we're going to use this as a sample track for going forward, because this is going to be the way that you guys notice that, see, everything's spiking up and down, and it's going all right. So we're going to hit stop. And we're going to go back. And now it's just recording what I'm going to say. And again, I'm not going to make you listen to my rambling twice. So we're going to start with that. So again, you start, you record, and you go from there. Now, mind you, this is a stereo track, and I'm not the biggest fan of stereo tracks, especially when you start recording podcasts to begin with, because stereo tracks, as you'll find out, the longer you start doing this, they start taking up more and more time of essentially what you're trying, more and more hard drive space. And if it takes up a whole bunch of your hard drive space, then it basically becomes a chore. And then you have to do a lot of moving everything around when it comes time to necessarily get everything going, basically. And
Konata,
yes.
Really quick, everyone's not seeing what you just recorded in this actual Audacity sequence. So let's make sure that we're sharing the right screen.
Mm-hmm. Let me go see if it's the right screen right there. Okay. Let's try that one. Is that?
There you go.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, if you can just kind of, yep.
Yes. All right. So I apologize for that. So let's go back and let me go actually erase this right quick. So when we start checking everything out, we're going to go back to this again. The Yeti. I have my speaker set through this way so that everyone can hear what I'm trying to do, and then monitors, and then I'm going to just hit record. And hopefully now everyone can see exactly what I'm doing in terms of recording everything. And we're going to stop my rambling right there. So again, we've got 12, 13 seconds of an intro. So that's the easy part, recording everything, because everyone's going to record, everyone's going to be able to record. That's the big thing. Make sure everything's connected, make sure everything is put together. But you're probably wondering at some point, how can I put this thing together to where I can put music in, how I can do some breaks and everything else like that? It's funny you ask. I can answer that for you. So what we're going to do, and Audacity is a little bit different from other programs because it's just usually open file, no big deal. You have to go down to File, Import Audio. And for this, you're going to import, double click. And this is going to be very important going forward, because otherwise, if you, let's say you wanted to do a new file, or you wanted to do a new file, you want to do something different, or upload a recent file, then what's going to end up happening is that it'll open and it will go directly, hold on one sec. It'll go to a new screen. It'll go to a new program instead, and you will basically have wasted all of your time on this at some point. So you click this, let's back that out. You don't necessarily need that. We're gonna be back on this screen. Can everybody see the screen that I'm sharing right now? All right, that's perfect. So obviously that's a 10-minute song, and for 12 minutes of what, for 12 seconds of what I'm trying to do, clearly I do not need all of that. So what I'm gonna do right here is click on that, click all the way to the end, hit delete, got a little piece of it there, and go from there. So from there, we're gonna go take a look at this lovely little tool that we have called the Zoom tool. And this is how we're going to start creating music intros, music beds, stuff that you can help create podcast intros, cold opens. Again, a lot of people are fans of the cold open when it comes to the podcast. I am one of them. So we're going to go get into that and slide this over a little bit. And then we're going to mess with the envelope tool, and to control volume on anything in terms of anything, in terms of sound effects or anything along the lines of that, we are going, again, you have to use the envelope tool. So this is the part where you're going to end up having to play a little bit, because this is, again, with production, with producing your own podcast, with producing your own set of, basically your own intro of sorts, you got to figure out the timing of what works, what doesn't. So we start, and then actually let me do something again to mute the audio track so that it doesn't mess with what you're trying to do. Just hit mute, and then you go from there. And so we're gonna listen. All right, so about 5 seconds in is probably the best time to drop the music down just a little bit. Make sure that the proper track is selected. If not, Control-Z will always be your friend. You start there. And then we are going to dip this down a little bit more. As you see, it almost compresses in terms of a file, sound file. And then you're just gonna make it as gradual but yet steep at the same time. And then let's listen to what the sound effect actually does for this, or not do that. Also, one thing you're going to learn is that Control-Z is going to be your friend when it comes to doing music beds, because you will end up making mistakes like the one I just did and almost ruin the music bed for you guys. So you're going to always click on the multi-tool after you finish editing anything that you have in Audacity. So we're going to listen. Now, let's see what that sounds like when we put it together with another track, with the audio track. And figure it out from there. So let's see if we can dip this back up. Like so. All right, and then go from there. So let's see what this sounds like once we take this off of mute. And go from here. Let's see what this all sounds like. And hopefully now everyone can see exactly what I'm doing in terms of recording everything. And we're gonna stop my rambling right there. Hold on, was that a separate set of music there? Hold on. Okay, that was completely unexpected, but that'll work. But essentially, this is what you're going to end up doing in terms of creating music beds. It helps create cold opens. Cold opens for the uninitiated are things similar to, like, you take a piece of the podcast that you have from before and basically use it as a preview to your episode. So if you have a really, really, really awesome quote that you want to use at the beginning of the podcast, then you go from there. And basically it's your preview. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys, again, now I've shown you how to record. I'm going to show you a little bit more about editing, and then more importantly, mixing down, because again, all this is really, 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 really nice. A lot of this won't work until you actually mix down and export it. So let me just close all of this, Control W. Do I want to save the project? No, most cases, no. New project. And then I'm going to bring that open and go import some audio. All right. And go from there. And it's going to take a little bit, but the idea behind this is going to make sense in a little bit. Because the idea is you're going to have to continually import files instead of open them, because opening them will create separate windows that will end up being one of those things that will end up complicating the process for you much, much down the line, especially when you're ready to start mixing. All right. So this is from a podcast that I produce for a friend of mine. Side note, very few, again, it's not, only produce podcasts for your friends for free if you really, really like them. Otherwise, don't. All right, so we're gonna cut this down to a 15-minute chunk. As always, you're going to use the multi-tool to eliminate large swaths of the podcast, and we're gonna go from actually right there, and then someone else has got their mic on right now. All right. So one big thing is I noticed initially, and it's something that you're not necessarily going to notice, but the lead of your podcast, or at least the lead of the podcast that I'm editing right now, they are on the bottom track instead of the top track. And for me, at least, I'm one of those people that I need the lead of my podcast to be essentially at the top, because if not, then again, it just throws the entire reference off, and you're always going to need references. So for this, you're going to just click on the file itself, go to move track up, and then you've just swapped out places for this. Now we're going to zoom this in because I'm going to do something similar to what I did with the cold open. with this as well. All right, get the import and download. All right, document. And no, it's not here. All right, let's try this one more time. Our open. All right, do this one more time and get this set up. And then as always, we're going to slide this and get rid of a decent chunk. Cold open shouldn't be more than about 45 seconds. And I need to get rid of that. And we are set. So what we're going to do for this, obviously control, and again, for controlling multiple tracks, especially if you're going to try and move them left and right, you're going to hold down control on one track and control on the other. Actually, all right, so you're going to slide this one, slide that one. And what we're going to do is functionally create the same cold open that I did before, but I'm actually going to take a little bit of the piece of what, again, and just turn it into a seamless intro for a podcast. And again, you're going to be able to do the same thing essentially. So we'll just take a piece of what the conversation was, and I would say right around here.
The other way too.
Yeah, Louisville is definitely the more talented team.
And we'll just use this, just quick piece and copy, and then it should be able to paste right there. Now, the only thing you're gonna end up having to do on this later down the line, at least, is for stuff like this, you are also going to have to line it back up, because this will move the blocks, again, move the tracks down to a point where you're not going to be too comfortable. So back to creating a cold open, starting right here. Close it down just a little bit, like so. Open it back up right here. All right, and then close it back down to right there. So be your cold open, your intro for your podcast, and then for that.
Welcome to an ACC podcast. I'm Lauren Brownlow, and we have so many ranked games.
So we have the intro, everything fits seamlessly, and you would think now would be the perfect time to say, hey, I'm done with this podcast. That would be incorrect, because at this point right now, you have to start with, you got to start normalizing tracks, and normalizing, as any essential, again, Perrine will tell you, because again, low key, she's better at this than I am, but Perrine will tell you that you got to normalize your tracks to get all the background noise out. So you're going to take a small little thing and go here and hit the normalize. You preview. And hit OK. Actually, no. That's actually what you don't want to do, because I made that louder than it should have been. But the idea is you're going to take this, reduce the noise, get the noise so it knows what to filter out. effect. Cancel. Just as much as you get as much of the background noise as you can out, because otherwise then it becomes just a massive problem that you end up having to fix much later. So now that you've gotten that done, then another thing that you may end up having to do, as if you notice some of the track, again, the guest track is a little bit, again, in terms of output, a little bit weaker than the host track. So one thing you absolutely have to do to make sure that you have a mixed track is to make sure that your sound, again, or at least the sound of everybody, is absolutely even. So what you're going to do is you're going to shrink this down to about that. Make sure that you have a nice even track. And then you're going to check your monitoring as you go, because that way you know exactly what you have to do to expand it, contract it, what have you. You're going to listen.
Welcome to an ACC podcast. I'm Lauren Brownlow, and we have so many ranked games, more than one of them.
You notice how it sounds, again, you look at the monitor to your right, which is going to be your output monitor, which is very important because you want to get in between about 3 and 18 when it comes to this. So we just start listening for the interactions and making sure that you're not hitting.
Call you old. I just, oh my God, you're not at all old.
Lauren, I am now leaving this podcast.
So the idea is to make sure that you have not only do you have a properly, effects having everything with this, but you also do have a properly mixed podcast, because as anyone will tell you, if your podcast isn't mixed, there's most likely you are not going to be listening for too long, because again, everyone's had that one podcast where they've essentially been messing with the volume dial too much, and again, their thumb gets an exercise and gets more of an exercise than they do on the treadmill, and that's never fun when we have any of those experiences. Another thing though is what you can do, and this is what I like doing too, is if I notice that there are parts that it doesn't feel like the host or the guest is kind of either low or high, the big thing for me is, again, that's when you have to start messing with the track. And this is where you're going to create 2 points, 2 divots almost, and then you're going to try and expand, or if it'll let you. Or you're going to have to compress the other side, which I almost did by mistake, and that would have been bad. One other thing that I'm also forgetting to give you guys is audio needs to be compressed just for better sound. And again, you can mess with the volume to make sure it's mixed, but once you have it properly mixed, you can then go to compression. Compression is one of those tools that'll end up making your podcast sound super professional, even if you think you don't know what you're doing. So when we go to the compressor, or better yet, Control all, let's get the compressor going. And the big thing about compressors is you're going to spend a lot of time, again, with Audacity, a lot of this is going to be figuring it out on your own. So you're going to end up messing with the compressor. You're going to mess with the threshold. I would probably tell you to keep the threshold lower, the noise floor probably a little bit higher. But the idea is that you're going to continue to mess with it. Hit preview. And then that's what's going to be the thing that saves you. And again, make sure that your podcast sounds as professional as possible, because with this, you're going to apply the compressor, and then again, it's going to take a little bit of time, but the compressor is going to help everything sound that much better. Again, you're going to have that mix sound that much stronger. And the big thing for a lot of this is when you're done.
Welcome to an ACC podcast.
All you got to do when you're done with this is mix. And for tracks, like multiple tracks, again, multi-track work, which is what a lot of you are going to be doing, especially if you start having guests, you start inviting people, you start having people send in their WAV files. When you start recording, you're going to be doing a lot of this in a multi-track setting. So you're probably wondering, I can't just straight export this. You'd be right. There's 2 steps to this. So you're going to hit Control A. You're going to go to tracks. You're going to see that lovely little mix button right here, and then mix and render to new track. At least that's what I like doing. And with that, you see on this bottom track, the mix. And then what you're going to do, just unclick all this, just click on this. And then when you are done, you are going to hit export as MP3, or if you really want to be, again, you want to be wild with it, or if you're using it as a video podcast, which I know some of you guys have taken courses for, or have taken some of the courses for, you can do this as a WAV for your video podcast down the line, but you're going to export and then put it in Audacity, or if you're me and you want to do something quick, you just put an ACC podcast, save it to your desktop. Again, the presets are, again, this is where it gets interesting, because for me, I am the type that'll do a standard. Again, for everywhere I've gone, it's been 192 in terms of bit rate, 4400 and 16-bit. This is where you get to, again, this is your presets, this is your variables. I would go constant bit rate 192 and then force export to mono, because in the idea of saving hard drive space, and more importantly, no one wants to download a 30-minute, 120 megabyte podcast at the end of the day. If you're going to do something with that big, that intricate in terms of sound, you're probably going to go to the video side of podcasting, or there's going to be something that involved with sound. So you're going to do an ACC podcast, and just, we'll call this episode 76. Exactly. Your tracks will be mixed down and exported to one mono file. It's okay. And you're going to have a whole bunch of metadata tags for what you're doing. For what you're doing right now, you're never really going to need that metadata tag at all. Again, if you have a whole bunch of episodes, like after a while, it may work. But for right now, just clear and then hit OK. And then it'll export. And then we get to see the finished product of, in less than 9 seconds, of what we are going to do with this podcast. All right, so let's see if we can open up. We'll use open, go to the desktop. And let's see what this looks like. All right, hold on one sec. Make sure that you guys can all see this. All right, cool. Good. So as you see, this is the fully exported file. It's a little bit, it's mixed. It's
Estimation, at least to Lewis.
wow. Okay.
And then
so that is your mix. That is the mix that you will be having. And once you're done with this, then it's straight to uploading and it's out in the world. Now, a couple of things as we go, as you'll learn, even though you feel like you could be done with this, this is one of those times where you can still tweak. So if you feel like, okay, there's something that's not really right with this, I can go back and, I don't know, again, loudness normalization. So again, click on track, generate. Again, just go to effects. Again, and normalize. Noise reduction. All right. And essentially, you are going to get to the point where, again, you have a finished product, you feel good about it, then you can put it out in the world. I'm trying to think of one or two more things before we get to questions, because it's almost getting to that time of questions. And actually, one quick trick that I will show you guys. So let's say you guys have something that you necessarily aren't really confident in, or you want to create a space for, I don't know, let's say you get to the point where you are collecting ad revenue, ad money for what you're doing, and you finish recording and you're like, oh my God, I forgot to create a spot for my ad. One big thing that I always will tell you to do, or at least this is one of my favorite things to do, and we are zoomed in a little too close, but it'll work. So you click there, generate, and the generate silence. And for, let's just say for argument's sake, it's a 30-second ad that you're trying to record. Just click OK, and then you generate, again, you zoom out. I'm sorry, hold on, shift. And there you go. That way you've created a hole in where you can basically generate, again, generating silence, generating a whole bunch of stuff. It's gonna end up coming in handy because sometimes it's a nice, cool way to say, oh my God, I forgot a part of my segment or something that we forgot to record, slide it in there, and no one is ever really the wiser. So the idea is with nonlinear editing, and I've had to do that before, where we've completely like spaced on a topic, or someone else is spaced on a topic, and I've had to go back to them and say, hey, you forgot to talk about this. Can you slide it in here? And no one will ever be the wiser. You just have to make sure that they're talking in the same tone. And again, that's where the normalizing, that's where you make sure that they're in the same space as you always have been. And basically you will be set to record. It is that lovely time, Perrine, where I think we are taking some questions, because I'm pretty sure I've generated a whole bunch by accident.
Yes, there are a ton of questions. Shout out to Mitch Joel for being amazing and for being an awesome resource throughout this session. And so we're going to kind of rewind it up a little bit. I think we've been able to answer a lot of people's questions as we've been going. But if you do have a question, we will try our best to answer those if you put them in the chat now. Okay, but I am going to rewind and try to get back to the top where we had a few questions earlier. Okay.
Okay, sure.
Fanny asked a question just about plugins with Audacity, right? So I sent a link for her to be able to download and get more information in plugins. But what she was mentioning was which plugins are your favorites? Also, what's the best way to get rid of plosives?
The best way, for at least for me, the best plugins, and I said this in the earlier common audio mistakes panel, is Isotope. Just Isotope are some of the best ones and they are always on sale, I'm finding out. So again, when we start talking about, like, just go through the Isotopes, the ones that, again, there are some that'll run you 30, sometimes it'll run you 30, sometimes it'll run you 100. But when it comes to plugins, Isotope, and getting rid of clipping, a lot of that is going to be compression. A lot of that's going to be compression in terms of making sure that you don't clip, make sure that the audio stays as close to level and as close to mixed as possible.
And speaking of compression, right? So we had a few questions about just when's the best time to use a compressor. So we had a few questions about that, right? So asking, should you use compressor after the tracks are mixed and rendered, or before they're mixed and rendered?
Before is probably the better answer. You can do it afterwards. It may, again, the thing is, when you do it afterwards, results may vary. Like, it may make the problem worse, but it also can make the problem better. So it can also fix your problem. It really does matter, but preferably compressors are always done before you mix.
Okay, and then also with the compressor, they wanted to know, well, compression, is it for individual tracks or the whole edit?
Do it for the entire edit. Do it for the entire edit because, and the big thing about doing it for the entire edit is that you are going to end up, there are going to be a lot of situations where you're not going to have even audio. So the best way to make it even, the best way to make sure that it mixes properly, the best way to make sure that no one's messing with that volume knob. And that's, and again, I am a stickler for just really making sure my sound is perfect. I would probably go, I would legitimately start going with compress everything. Compress everything. The only thing that you may not need to compress, and I stress may, is the music. And the music is going to go on a separate track and you leave that alone. But anything vocal, probably you're better off compressing.
Okay, awesome. So Billy and Deb mentioned earlier just about adjusting, basically when you get crappy audio, right? Let's say there's like some echoes or you just have guests without good mics, right? I know we kind of went through like briefly how to use like noise reduction and whatnot, but do you have any like correction tips and tools for echoes?
Echoes is really hard. Echoes is one of the harder ones to edit out. The best thing you can do in a term, let's see if I can go back to the previous mix because I can show you something. Matter of fact, let me see. Can you see the screen I'm on now, or am I? All right, cool. So the best way to do this is gonna take a long time. But I find that generally, especially when we're recording over Zoom or something else like that, most of the issues that we have when we're recording like this are involving when the other person is not speaking, and then you hear that echo and you hear the computer ding, and they just don't have the headphones. So a lot of the time, what you're going to end up doing is that echo is coming from the separate track. So all you're going to end up doing is right here. You're going to again, take that dead space right there, because generally that's where your echo is going to come, and you're going to have to delete it. Now, here's the problem. When you hit that delete, you see how it moves it over? Like you're going to have to, and this is where you start splitting tracks. And I believe, let me go make sure that it is right there. Control B. Actually, let me just slide this back just a little bit, or better yet. But the idea is you're gonna, again, the best way to do it is to either normalize or get rid of the dead space. A lot of the time, most of your echoes, especially if you're doing it digitally, are gonna come from the dead track, from the track that you least expect. And normalizing or eliminating that space altogether is gonna probably be your best bet.
Awesome. And just to echo what Mitch and others are saying in the chat, Zoom is not the best platform to record audio. It's actually the worst. Yes, you see Mitch shaking his head.
Yeah, Mitch is absolutely right.
Yeah, and Skype is like the OG. Whenever like I first started doing remote interviews, actually, this was like pre-COVID, we went to Skype. Like Skype is just what you use. And so that is like the preferred, and I know that there's other suggestions and whatnot here in the chat, but I just wanted to clear that up really quick. Thanks again to Mitch. And we had another question earlier, and I can't remember if this was answered or not, but it was when setting the boundary on the dB for spoken tracks, I found when exporting the project to an MP3 that the total volume was affected in the file to being barely audible.
Because that's because for spoken tracks, that's unfortunately because MP3s are naturally compressed. That's a lot of that is because MP3s are naturally compressed. If you're going to, like, unfortunately in those type of situations and scenarios, a lot of that is going to end up, you're going to end up having to record it in WAV, and you're just going to have to find another way to compress it. Because in any other case, then you're going to be asking for, again, you're in a world of hurt because MP3s are going to be naturally compressed. it's a lot of when it basically you're stuck with wave. And I wish I had a solution for you on that one.
Yeah. All right, so another question, and I wanted to make sure this may have been answered a little bit. It just said, if the podcast is a monotrack, does that mean it will only come through one ear in the headphone when someone listens? Just some clarity on mono versus stereo tracks.
So stereo is going to be a lot more depth. The one thing about stereo is that stereo is going to be a deeper sound. The only problem when you start dealing with stereo is that it's a bigger file. And it goes back to the fact that a lot of what you're going to do to make sure that your podcast gets out. And again, it's also to save you money because, again, storage space is a real thing to worry about and pay for, especially when you're talking about uploading it or transferring it to Dropbox or you having to pay for accounts. A lot of, again, when you start doing this, when you start out, again, basically the difference between mono and audio is depth of sound and file size. That's the big thing, is just file size is going to matter. Depth of, again, how big your file is going to matter. And that's basically it. It's this mono is basically, it'll come through both headphones. It's not going to be one of those things like, oh, I can only hear it out of one. It'll come through both. It's just the depth of the sound, pretty much.
All right. Someone else just mentioned, do you recommend, if you need to make adjustments after you exported a mono mix, to go back into the original multi-track file and apply? Yes. Because again, the big thing is if there's like a clip that you need to edit, or if there's a quote that someone says that that you don't want in there anymore, or there's something that's accurate that's no longer accurate, the best way to do that is to continually save that project file and to continually just go back in there and redo it. Save the, again, make sure that after you've mixed down, save that project session file, because it will save you so much of a headache of having to put it over again, because I've had to do that a couple of times. And unfortunately with Audacity, it's a little bit harder to put everything together again than it is some of the other programs. Awesome. Can you break down what a plugin is?
A plugin is going to be, it's like what spinach is to Popeye. It's going to make a lot of it's going to make your audio stronger. It's going to take a few of those, bumps and those awkward noises out. And once it's going to help you. It's your little helper. And once you get your plugins, and the thing with plugins is you're not necessarily going to know what works for you. And a lot of this is going to be one of those things where, okay, I got to just get in here and play with this. A lot of this is just getting into the software and playing. And then after that, figuring out which plugins you like, which plugins you don't. And a lot of these plugins also do have some sort of free trial. So you're going to be able to at least attempt to use some of them and figure out what you like, what you don't like, and then go from there.
Awesome. Let's see. And I think Mitch just answered this, but definitely feel free to chime in, Mitch, if you want to unmute. I think someone was just asking, like, what's better to edit on, a PC or Mac?
That is personal preference. That is honestly personal preference. A lot of that is, especially for me, like I've worked on most of my big stuff that I do sound-wise is done on a giant gaming PC. But my to-go stuff, and when I have a mic, again, a laptop and a mic, it's done on Mac. It really doesn't matter. I would honestly just say it just matters to be versatile in both. Like, get something you're comfortable with, get in, dig in, and go from there, because a lot of this is just practice. A lot of this is, quite honestly, just a lot of practice.
Awesome. Mitch, I'm going to unmute you really quick if you want to chime in. Again, Mitch has been like awesome, like killing it in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for doubling down.
Thank you for doing this, so much appreciated. Yeah, I just tell people whatever you have is what you use. You're not going to buy a PC or a Mac based off of doing a podcast. But I'd be curious to know, you said earlier that it's not your favorite software, Audacity. So what is your favorite?
Audition.
Mac on Mac?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Adobe Audition for both. The big thing is coming up in radio, Audition is literally just the standard. Now, granted, it's not the newest version of Audition generally at the radio stations, but it's a version of Audition no matter what. So going and doing that and just learning my craft. And again, I was very, very fortunate to learn from a lot of people that knew what they were doing with Audition. And again, me being curious, and again, Joni asking me, hey, you know Audacity, you wouldn't mind teaching a class. Like a lot of this, like, is just me being intellectually curious and trying to figure out, okay, let me be good at this as well. Because as I've learned, again, the big thing about software, again, recording software is there may be one thing that's like really, really popular this year. There'll be another one in 6 months, and there'll be another. Again, the only thing that about Audition is Audition's been around for about 10, 15 years now. But again, I've had to learn not only this, but I've had to learn Pro Tools. I've had to learn Hindenburg. There's a whole bunch of these that are really, 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 really good. And it's just like, I would put it this way. Your choice of recording software is basically like your favorite soda. Everyone's got a different one. Some people like Cheerwine, some people like Coke, some people like Pepsi, even though we don't try to claim those people that like Pepsi, but still. But the big thing is, like, it just really matters whatever you're the most comfortable with and you're willing to just put in the time to learn the nuances of.
So there's somebody asked a question in the chat, and it's a really important one, and it took me a lot of work to find it. But yes, if you update Audacity on MacBook to Catalina or whatever the latest one is, it will no longer find your microphone. It is extremely frustrating. It's insane, but there's a very easy fix, which is you shut down Audacity so it cannot be open. You open your terminal in your Mac, and then I'm going to put it in chat what you actually copy and paste into it. You copy and paste that little line of code. It will just sit back. It will open up Audacity by itself. Leave terminal open, never close it, leave it open the whole time. You then select the mic that you want in Audacity. It will work perfectly. When you're done at the end of your session, close Audacity, then close terminal. If you close terminal while Audacity is open, the mic will no longer be recognized. It's a weird workaround, but Audacity is free and that's what you deal with.
Exactly.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Seriously.
See you later. Thank you. Nice seeing you.
Greatly. And we're going to wrap up shortly. Ashanti just said, is there a resource with the top plugins to check out?
Honestly, Reddit, again, finding a community again, and Reddit is one of the best communities in terms of figuring out which resources work for them. Reddit is probably my favorite because there'll be something that someone will try. And again, I know they're doing like an interview podcast. It may be different if you're trying to work a narrative podcast, storytelling podcast, what you may be looking for, the ideas, the effects. That is probably what I would probably go to, is just the Audacity. Again, Google Audacity, Reddit, and there will be a tool of, again, there will be a resource of plugins, and anything that I might have missed, you will definitely find it there.
Yes, I agree. I just actually shared my favorite Reddit that I bookmarked about cleaning up, your audio and just like suggested presets for Audacity. So definitely with that. So I think we're able to get to everyone's questions. Yes, Reddit is REDDIT. Okay, Reddit. All right. Any more questions? I think we have enough time for about one more.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, a huge thank you to Konata. A huge shout out to Mitch.
Yes, seriously.
In the chats and being awesome. Again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Just want to leave you with a few important things just coming down the pipeline. We have, again, recorded this session, okay? So you will receive this session in your email this month. So make sure, again, you do not forget to check your spam or your junk folder. It will be there as a resource for you. Also, Konata is teaching a session on what he just
Audition. Yeah, y'all get to get the real master class, the Master Suite class, Thursday at 6.
Yes, Thursday at 6. You can register again for free and hear Konata share some gems on Audition. So again, bookmark your calendars this Thursday at 6 p.m. and get the breakdown on Audition, okay? So we still have, a few weeks left with the Charlotte Podcast Festival. We have tons of panels still taking place. So if you want to get a full list of all of the sessions and speakers, make sure you go to charlottepodcastfestival.com, all right? And again, make sure you share your experience using our hashtag CLT Podcast Fest. You can also just join the community of podcasters who have already participated in all of the sessions that have taken place prior, and again, what's to come in the future, okay? You can also support the festival by purchasing one of these lovely t-shirts. It's super soft, super fabulous. You'll look amazing in it. And you can find out more information again about this t-shirt and supporting this cause by going to our website, charlottepodcastfestival.com. We have virtual happy hours taking place every Friday of this festival. It's an amazing opportunity to just network with other podcasters and just mix and mingle, right? So take a load off, grab a mocktail or a cocktail if you're feeling a little fancy. We're all grown here. Friday at 6 p.m. You can register again for this for free on our website. And again, I'd like to just thank everyone. Again, a round of applause to Konata. Thanks again, Mr. Mitch, everyone here who chimed in for just embracing the Charlotte podcasting scene and just creating even more of an amazing community for podcasters. I applaud you. I thank you. We are a support system. We're here to help one another. So always reach out. You can follow me at Perrine DeShield or with my agency at Eclecs on all social media platforms. And again, have a great rest of your week. Have a lovely weekend, and we hope to see you in another session soon. All right, everyone. See ya. Have a great night.